have you learned anything more about Will Johnson's fall from French top 10 prospect to 47th overall?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of got the word, I would say like about a week before the draft, that there was a chance that he could fall. And it was the days before, it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where it was like, yeah, he's got an outside shot going first round, but it was more going to be, early stages of round two. I was shocked that he was on the board for Arizona in the middle of round two. I thought that, you're probably looking 33, 34, 35, like something in that range.
The franchise mode, Fran Duffy. Fran, we're a couple weeks removed from the big weekend here. We're letting the dust settle. We're starting to see some more free agent moves. George Pickens being traded away today. As you've kind of been able to take a 5,000-foot view of what took place that Thursday to Saturday, anything that you've looked back over and you're like, man, I should have seen this coming, or this is a surprise to me, something that the casuals like us wouldn't identify?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the big thing that typically happens for me this time of year, like outside of all right, like now I've got a lot of data entry to put in and just kind of get started with stuff for 2026 and beyond. It's a lot of, all right, like this guy fell further than where I expected him to go, right? Where I had been hearing. Why? This guy went undrafted. I thought he was going to, it sounded like every conversation I had was, he's going to go 5th, 6th round. Why did he fall out? Those kinds of conversations. And so you start to find out, I missed this character thing. I missed this medical thing. So it's a lot of that. Obviously I went through all the undrafted free agents for all the all-city teams last week, the week after the draft. So that took a lot of my time in the ensuing days as soon as draft weekend ended. But I think, just looking at this group overall, it was a lackluster draft, right? And it was a weird year. I think it happened for a perfect storm of reasons. But I think at the end of the day, the Cardinals are certainly one of the teams just kind of like surveying the field, looking at the rest of the NFL. The Cardinals had one of the more impressive hauls, from through my lens, like through how I evaluated these players. I really liked what Arizona did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement as far as that. And we will get your thoughts. It's up at gophnx.com on the undrafted rookie free agent class. It differs from how we approached it, so kind of want to combine those. But, to really kind of boost this class was the ability to get Will Johnson there at 47th overall. We've talked about it quite a bit, but
yep.
You said you kind of take inventory of all that and like the medical information. He's got his own YouTube page, and we got to kind of go through that turbulent 2-day stretch. Have you learned anything more about Will Johnson's fall from French top 10 prospect to 47th overall?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of got the word, I would say like about a week before the draft, that there was a chance that he could fall. And it was the days before, it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where it was like, yeah, he's got an outside shot going first round, but it was more going to be, early stages of round two. I was shocked that he was on the board for Arizona in the middle of round two. I thought that, you're probably looking 33, 34, 35, like something in that range for Will Johnson. But obviously, look, the Cardinals are benefiting from that decision, or, stand to benefit from that decision if Will Johnson is able to stay healthy, because to get him where you got him in the middle of the second round, it's outstanding value for Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon.
Is it poor drafting by those teams at the top of the second round? You do look at the players, the positions that went ahead of Will Johnson, and it's like off-ball linebacker to start at 33rd overall. You see some tight ends mixed in there. The Cardinals just benefit from bad franchises making bad decisions?
I think it's going to be, it's almost like, I mean, you guys were well aware of this, right? It was like the Andy Isabella versus DK Metcalf thing, right? Where it's like, how could you take Andy Isabella over DK Metcalf? It's like, well, for a lot of teams, DK Metcalf was just clear off the board, right? And I haven't talked with a lot of teams that clearly had Will Johnson clean off, but it was more like, all right, it's enough here that it is going to affect the grade and where we feel comfortable taking him. Now, obviously, for him to fall as far as he did, you're falling out of the top 40. My gut tells me, yeah, there were probably teams that had him off the board completely. I think at the end of the day, then you get into, all right, who are the teams that are okay, that had him on the board, that gave him the green light? Who are the teams that had a yellow light on him? And then outside of that, are there teams that said all right, yeah, he's a good corner, But if you're the Cleveland Browns, you're like, all right, we've got Ward, we've got Emerson, we've got we've got our nickel corner situation good. We're not going to take a corner, right? And so I think that at the end of the day, it almost gets into like the Shedeur Sanders conversation where it's like, all right, if we're going to narrow the playing field, how many of these teams that are left are willing to take a player at my position? And I think that's honestly what happened with Will Johnson.
I know it's too early to pose a question like this, but I want to get your opinion on it. So the top of the second round in particular felt like a run on non-premium positions. There was an off-ball linebacker in Schlesinger, 2 to 3 running backs before Will Johnson, a couple guards. Seattle took a safety. Like, are we going to look back on the top of the second round if Will Johnson turns into the kind of player we think he can? And just to Bo's point, the teams overthink that because of this draft being not, on the higher end side. Did you see teams just kind of revert back to, we're just going to take what we feel like are good football players? Whereas the Cardinals clearly, like Fran, in 3 drafts with Monty Ossenford, have only gone premium positions the first 2 rounds.
Yep. And that's like, we'll talk about this, 10 months from now, 8 months from now, when we're doing mock drafts and the Arizona Cardinals are picking at 32, and everyone's going to be mocking them, a guard or a running back or a linebacker. It's like, yeah, but you know what? Monty Ossenford has never selected a non-premium position in the first 2 days of the draft. I think when you're looking at the way that it seems to be a staple of their strategy. Now, when it comes to these kinds of trends, I like to say it's a trend until it's not. The Eagles, they don't select linebackers in round 1. They haven't taken one since 1979. All right, until they almost traded up in the first round to select Jahad Campbell, right? And it's saying that we see this all the time. The Seahawks don't trap; they wait until day 3 to select corners, and then they take one in the top 5 with Devin Witherspoon. So I think when you're looking at this, though, Johnny, looking at the way that the second round just kind of rolled along. Again, it kind of goes back to Bo's point about, our team's going to be kind of second guessing themselves. Look, Will Johnson fits the profile of the Cleveland Browns. You talk about like exactly what we were just mentioning with like, everybody has a type. Well, the Cleveland Browns, like they, for the most part, the large majority of their picks under Andrew Berry, it's Power 5 schools, that are underclassmen from Power 5 schools in the first 3 rounds of the draft. And so Carson Schlesinger, he matches that. Quinshon Judkins, he matches that. But at the end of the day, like those are, again, like non-premium positions. They probably feel good at the cornerback spots. They're like, all right, we're going to address these other areas of need. We're staff playing for our jobs right now, coaching for our jobs. We're going to go there as opposed to a Will Johnson, which might be the best player available. Some of these other teams, like the Seahawks took Emanwari. Like, was Will Johnson completely off their board medically? Tyler Shuck, he was going to the Saints at 40. Like, everyone felt good that they were going to take a quarterback, and it was likely going to be Tyler Shuck. If you're the Chicago Bears, like, are you second guessing the move for Luther Burden? Those teams, as you get closer to that pick to where Will Johnson went off the board, yeah, if he was on the board for you, teams are going to be second guessing that decision.
Yeah, we've heard from Gannon a couple times in the post day 2 press conference. He joined Sean on Sports on Sirius XM last week and said that they, as far as the Cardinals go, medically, they're comfortable with Will Johnson. It would be the last question about Johnson. But, I mean, how is there such a difference between how teams are navigating this and a player the caliber of Will Johnson? One team doesn't even have him on their board, and then the Cardinals are just like, no, we feel fully comfortable with it.
Yeah, and honestly, we're having the same conversation here in Philly because with Jahad Campbell, it was the same kind of deal where a lot of teams had, top 15, top 20 grades on him. The Eagles were one of those teams, but teams outright, I heard more teams that took Jahad Campbell off the board than Will Johnson off the board. Now that I didn't talk with all 32 teams, I don't know how all 32 teams viewed it, but I personally knew of more teams that had Campbell completely off the board than Johnson. But it's the same idea. Basically, what happens? All 32 teams obviously go out to the combine, and everybody sends medical professionals, people from their medical staff over, and everybody gets their hands on all of these players. They get access to all of the same medical reports. But some teams are more conservative than others. Some teams are more open to things than others. And so you might look at it, the same doctor or a different doctor might look at the same sheets and say, yeah, like this is going to be an issue for him 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, or no, like he'll probably be okay. Like, hey, we had somebody that had this same kind of deal and he played for 10 years, no issue, right? It never missed a game because of the knee, right? And so I think at the end of the day, it's it's the same thing, honestly, that every team gets every single ounce of film on players, and you're going to watch the film and have a different conclusion. It's the same thing with the medical teams. And oftentimes it's going to be completely out of the GM and the GM's hands. If the owner says no, like the medical team, what they say goes, it's like, all right, well, this guy's off the board. Like there's nothing we can do, guys. He's off the board.
I went back and charted the last 5 years of first-round defensive tackle play, and really outside of Jalen Carter and a 6-sack season on a plug-and-play defense where, I mean, he had basically a gold pass to the front of the quarterback that year, and he was fantastic. Defensive tackles year one, it's tough to gauge based on a box score how productive they were. Like Derek Brown once upon a time, and Devontae Wyatt for the Packers. Jordan Davis was relatively average his first year with the Eagles. Yep. What's a good year statistically look like for Walter Nolen, given the situation that he's walking into, where he's not asked to be the savior like Darius Robinson was last year? You've got Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, Darius himself, and then you've got Walter Nolen. Like, what would you deem a good year for Walter Nolen?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to to Jalen Carter's rookie year in 2023, and that was a 6-sack performance. He was coming off the bench. Fletcher Cox was a starter, and Jalen Carter was essentially his backup, rotated in behind him, and was impactful. I mean, 6 sacks, two forced fumbles, had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. I remember that was in the Dallas Cowboys game on the road. It was impactful. It was out there, and you felt his presence every single week. He actually had fewer sacks last year in 2024, but was playing in a more full-time role, and the guy was just dominant. It was the double team rates and the attention that was being paid to him from opposing offensive lines. I would say if you're a Cardinals fan, you're watching this defense, whether or not Walter Nolen's a starter or if he's coming off the bench, whatever that is, like you want him to pop. You want him to show that he belongs. And, sometimes that might take, it might be 2 snaps a game, 1 or 2 snaps a game where you're like, oh, there it is. You just don't want it to be, man, like we didn't hear his name the entire game. I think this is a position where we've seen in the past, like Dexter Lawrence is a great example here in the NFC East for the New York Giants. His 5th-year option wasn't picked up by the Giants. It wasn't until that 5th year the 4th year when he broke out. And when you look at like Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee, a lot of the top defensive tackles in football, it took them a couple years before they really hit their stride. So I would not give up on him early, but you'd like to see him flash sooner rather than later.
We had a conversation yesterday about 4th-round pick Cody Simon, where he's obviously had a big time season, finished it off, capped it off being the defensive MVP in the national championship game. And the Cardinals bring in before the draft Akeem Davis-Gaither as maybe a bridge potentially, or their starting linebacker, but he's never played 50% of the snaps at any point in his NFL career, and he's been kind of starred on special teams before this. When you look at this in Simon's opportunity, but we don't think that it's going to be like, hey, Simon can play this like 50% of the snaps, 40% of the snaps. This is a position that you really have to be on the field in order to get that playing time. How do you view this competition? Because I think it's going to be one of the best at training camp between Akeem Davis-Gaither and Simon potentially.
It is. And honestly, like Cody Simon was Akeem Davis-Gaither for Ohio State before last year, right? Like he was kind of your sub package player, part-time guy on defense, was a special team stalwart. And then, in that final year, that's when he got promoted into the starting lineup. He played as a starter. I want to say it was his sophomore year in Columbus, but that was due to injury where he got inserted into the lineup, but went back to the bench for the following 2 seasons. So I think when you're looking at, Akeem Davis-Gaither has been in the league now for a few years. While he has never played 50% of the snaps, like he's always kind of been there, on that defense for Cincinnati. They just happen to have Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, who, Pratt is starting to hit the age cliff there, and it's starting to show. I'm surprised they didn't bring Davis-Gaither back for that reason. But I think at the end of the day, my guess is, that's going to be a really healthy competition. If I had to guess, like who's got the leg up, my guess is it's probably Simon. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that one ensues here this summer.
Looking at, let's say, the 5th round onward, Fran, including the mix of undrafted players, based on your evaluation, your grades, who is the best of that group? Because we feel like Cody Simon's got a chance to start, so let's put him off the side for a second. So 5th round, you've got Denzel Burke, 6th round, they took a guard. 7th round, they took a safety out of Nevada. And then they had roughly 4 to 6 undrafted free agents of note. Who do you think has the chance just to be the best NFL player?
I would say Burke probably has the chance to be the best NFL player. He was a guy that I had high hopes for coming in and coming into this past season. We talked about it. He didn't have a great senior year, and so I think the volatility there dropped him down into the 5th round. He was a guy that I thought had a chance to be like a top 40 slot, like where Will Johnson went in the draft. That's kind of where I thought Denzel Burke, a year ago at this point, I was like, this is where Denzel Burke's going to go in the draft. He's potentially round 1, if not middle stages of round 2. That was what the progression, kind of the projection kind of looked like. And he just did, it wasn't even like terrible year though. It's the weird thing, Johnny. Like it was like, yeah, he had some bad games. Like he had some clunkers and just responding from that adversity. Like, how did that go? It was just a little bit up and down. So I think when you're looking at Denzel Burke, this is a battle-tested corner with instincts. I think traits-wise, like solid across the board, like no huge flaws, but no like A traits either. So I would say, yeah, I would probably feel best about his ceiling. But then look, I feel best about like Keaton Crawford's floor, just because of what he can do on special teams. I'm excited about what he can do. And he's got a great ceiling because of the tools at his disposal. I went through and I have the piece up at gophnx.com with all the UDFAs where I went back and I just watched all six guys that the Cardinals signed. And, my big thing when I'm doing that is I'm not watching 6 games like I would for these guys like in the fall. Basically, I'm going to go through and it's all right. If this is a pass catcher, let me watch all of his targets. I want to see like, where is the thing that this guy can hang his hat on to say like, yeah, this is going to be his ticket to being able to make it. Now, I would say of the UDFAs, the guy that stood out most to me was Ohio State offensive lineman Josh Fryer. Obviously, he's familiar with Justin Fry, but I just watching him come off the ball at 6'5", 318 with his length, I was like, all right, this guy's played some guard. He's got a little bit of a tackle body. He's explosive athlete. So to me, like he was the guy that when I look, and especially considering his history with Fry, I was like, this guy has an outside shot. I could see him making some noise this summer.
Real quick, Bo, everybody blowing me grief in the chat because I didn't bring up Hayden Connor. Supposedly going to the Hall of Fame already as a 6th round Arizona Cardinals. Could you give us a brief scouting report on
Johnny?
Hayden Connor? He's a fast riser. As people in the chat are saying he's going to be the breakout candidate. In all seriousness, I know who Hayden Connor is. What do you project? What does he project to be at the NFL level?
Yeah, when I did my write-up on the Cardinals picks, like after the draft, I said he's, to me, like archetype-wise, he's like Will Hernandez. Like this is the type, right? Where it's like he's a big physical brawler. He's not the best athlete. He doesn't have like outstanding range, but get him into a phone booth and he's gonna spar with you. He's gonna latch on and try and run his feet and get you to the ground. That's the kind of player that Hayden Connor is. Played some tackle early in his career. I think that he is definitely going to be more of an interior guy, probably only a guard only moving into the NFL. That versatility that will hurt him a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, like Hayden Connor definitely has a shot to be able to stick. There's some starting upside there potentially, but I don't think that it's like super high upside. I think we're talking like, all right, he would be like a replacement level starter if you were able to reach that point. If not, then he's going to be a backup guard.
Get his bus ready in Canton, Ohio in a couple of years. I feel good. I puffed my chest out because I mentioned just kind of what you said, and I respect your opinion way more than even my own as far as in a phone booth. I said that draft day, didn't I, Johnny? I said
no, I don't think you did,
because he doesn't look like the most athletic guy, but he's a big dude. They were impressed, Fran, apparently, his ability to kick over at center in the college football playoff, and like that, he'll do anything for the team. One last undrafted rookie free agent, some guy we identified as they've flushed this defensive line group. Calais Campbell, Walter Nolen, Dalvin Tomlinson, who probably is the guy that profiles most to maybe play some nose, play some one technique. You've got a guy in Elijah Simmons. Can he find a way just based off of that? Like they don't have that, or is that something they can find, or they'll just have Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones pick up that on the roster?
I would say, like, based off my study of Simmons over the course of the process, like, all right, like it'll probably go more towards the vets. He was a tough eval. I think that when you see him up close, you're like, man, like this kid just physically Yeah, like the dimensions are impressive, but like you're when you stand next to him, you're like, man, like this guy doesn't look like an NFL player, right? Just in terms of the way he's put together. That said, yeah, like he's got the ability to be able to hang as like that zero technique nose tackle. As long as he's able to, make sure like, all right, like I'm locked in. This is my role. I'm going to go and embrace this. His production was really, really poor over the course of his time in Tennessee. And not a guy that even in the run game, like the production just was not there on a down to down basis. Usually when you see guys, and this was the case with all these Tennessee players, because they rotated those guys in and out. We talked about with James Pierce Jr., Omar Norman Lott. They played like 8 to 10 defensive linemen. So it was like full on hockey line changes. Like, all right, 4 guys in, 4 guys out. Usually what happens with production with those guys when they play on a unit like that is that their production rates are sky high because they're not playing a ton of snaps. So you saw that with James Pierce Jr. You saw that with Norman Lott. And it was like, yeah, like, but they're only playing 250 snaps. With Simmons, he was playing like 200 snaps and still was not getting production. And he doesn't have a great athletic profile. So it's like, there's not a lot to get excited about there other than the fact like this guy's huge and he can be tough to move when he plays with good technique. And so if he can show up this summer and say like, yeah, he's gonna lock in and kind of embrace that role, then he's gonna have an outside shot.
Fran clearly has not seen the video of Elijah Simmons on a basketball
No,
court.
I saw it.
That should have made him a day 3 pick on its own. That's how we evaluate players here on PHNX Cardinals. Last question. We'll get you out of here on this. So we saw George Pickens get traded today for a 3rd rounder. Gabe Davis was cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. It did feel like Dallas probably was going to go Tedero McMillan and since have pivoted. Like looking retrospect with this receiver class, which was not good. And then at GoPHNX.com, you have the Cardinals taking a wide receiver in the 1st round next year. Like, how are we going to look back at this wide receiver class with Matthew Golden falling to the Packers, Tedero McMillan, clearly the number 1 option here for a lot of teams? Like, is this going to be a year where this position was really just kind of watered down after how star-studded it was a year ago?
No question. It wasn't a great group. I think that we all liked T-Mac, what he can bring. I think that he landed in a good spot with a good coach that knows how to use a player with his talent. He will be the number 1 receiver for Bryce Young at the moment he steps into that building. So I think that he's got obviously a great opportunity. Travis Hunter, notwithstanding, you can put him aside, kind of a different animal that way. But yeah, I mean, look, I had reservations about Matthew Golden and his profile, and I'm not like super excited about what that ceiling could be. I think he could be a fine complementary piece. Green Bay has a lot of complementary pieces. Like that's why, to me, like if T-Mac were to fall to them, that would have made more sense to me. It's like, all right, this guy can be their target hog. He can be their alpha. But I don't know that that's going to be Matthew Golden. And if that's the case, like, why are you taking that guy in the 1st round? I liked Egbuka a little bit more. I like where he ended up in Tampa. I think that'll be really interesting, kind of learning from Godwin in year 1, and we'll see what he can become there in year 2. But yeah, this receiver class wasn't great. When I did my 2026 too early mock draft, which by the way, like I think I've studied like 2 guys like lengthy from that entire 32 list of 32 there. But I had to give him a Buckeye. I was like, we got to slide a Buckeye down into. So I was like, all right, let's throw them a receiver. Let's go with Carnell Tate from Ohio State.
Yeah, always gonna tease it up. People were probably thinking, "Oh, Jeremiah Smith." Not yet.
Not yet. We gotta wait another year.
Not yet. No, but yeah, check out the entire 2026 way too early mock draft from Fran Duffy. I highly encourage you. Go PHNX.com. I'm gonna sneak this one in real quick because 2024 it was wide receivers, tackles were the strength. This year it was defensive front 7 players, defensive linemen, some edges in there. What is this class of 2026 trending towards? What should we watch next fall closely?
Yeah, I mean, for me going into the summer, because honestly, that's how I use this mock draft exercise. Is like, all right, like this is kind of like my order of my watch list, and I'll do another mock draft. I'll do a big board and stuff like that once we get to like late August. But as of now, this feels like another really good defensive line group. I'm excited about these quarterbacks. That's going to be fun here honestly, it'll probably start tomorrow. I'll be starting to go through that group. So, just starting to watch the film of these guys. I would say quarterback, defensive line, edge, end-to-end interior. And then I would say maybe corner. A couple of those names of the corner profiles really kind of caught my eye. There's a kid at Tennessee, Clemson. Honestly, that was one of my big takeaways was like, I think I had like 5 Clemson players in the top 16,
Wow.
which, that might have been a problem. That might have been something for you guys to watch under your previous GM. Steve Keim loved the Clemson Tigers, but I think that, that was one of my other big takeaways as well.
This is a safe space now. There's no more Steve Keim. We make smart decisions here. We feel very confident.
I'm out on Drew Aller, man. I'm not. It's going to take a really, really good season for Drew Aller to convince me. I think he kind of sucks.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. It's, you know what it is though? It's like the same thing. This happens every year where there are quarterbacks that everyone at this time in May and you get into June, it's like, oh yeah, like this guy first round. And then we watch him, and then we get into like August, like actually, like no, he's probably more of a day 3 guy. So between Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, a couple of these, I think Sellers looks like the real deal at South Carolina. I'm excited to get into his film, but and I feel really strong about Nussmeier. He's one of the few guys on this list that I have put the work in on. So Nussmeier, I think, will still be in that first round mock when I do that at the end of the summer. But chances are a couple of these quarterbacks are not the genuine article.
You're a first-round pick in our eyes, Fran Duffy. Check out his work, PHNX.com. Follow him on X, Twitter, all social media platforms. He's diving back into the tape. We're going to check back in with our guy, the franchise, Fran Duffy, throughout the course of the rest of the offseason and maybe jump on, do some rookie evaluations during the year. What do you say?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. I got a couple more shows of me before we go too crazy here in the summer.
Let's do it, my friend. Fran, thanks for the time, brother.